again, I am delighted to talk to you through this video, and what I'm going to do is to do a summary of all the activities you have done in the classroom. So I'm going to start summarizing, for example, the activity related to 10 questions about language awareness. If you remember, you were reading a short, well, it was a little bit long article, but you didn't have to read all. You only read 2 questions, so you had to use those 2 questions to feel agreed with principles, objectives, and the procedure related to language awareness. So that was the first activity you did, if you remember. You also did watched a video, and this video presented a language awareness class. Very interesting, because you could see all the process related to language awareness, and what is the, for example, what is the role of a teacher, what is the role of a student, the materials, all the setting for the class. So that was a very interesting video, and also inductive and deductive teaching. All right, so those were the 3 activities you did in classroom, and as I said before, I'm going to do a summary of these activities for you to, well, like some sort of a wrap-up, but also like to start working on the following things you have to do in order to close the course, for us to close this language awareness course. All right, so first of all, let's see some of the aspects we were studying in these 3 activities, these previous activities, the 10 questions about language awareness in the video, the inductive and deductive teaching. And some of the things that if you remember, some of the things that you read about it, it was like, for example, that in language awareness, learners discover language for themselves. This is very important. Okay, language awareness aims to help learners discover. So this is a very key concept of language awareness: discovery, noticing, paying attention, right? For example, another principle, another concept about language awareness is that learners learn best while effectively engaged in the activity. If you remember the video, the children were engaged in the activity. All the process, all the lesson, they were engaged. So learners learned better. Learning is much more effective when children engaged in the activity, and they don't play a passive role of during the activity, and they are more active. All right, okay, now learners notice for themselves how language is typically used. Again, it's this concept of noticing is related to the concept of discovering. So notice, discover, pay attention, those are like key words related to language awareness. The process of learning by themselves, the process of noticing, discovering. I'm going to bring a glass of water. Sorry for that. I'm back. Now, another key concept of language awareness is that learners develop a mental attribute through paying motivating attention to language in use. This is very, very important, because the learning process obviously is related to the brain. Okay, so when you are discovering, when you are noticing, when you are paying attention, when you are involved in the activity, when you are taking an active role, obviously you develop a mental attribute. All right, So that is one of the purposes of language awareness. Instead of just seeing the children, the students are just passive recipients of knowledge from the teacher, they are actively involved in the process of learning. So if they are actively involved, then language awareness aims to develop a mental attribute. Learners convey meaning when they develop a growing insight into the way language works. Okay, so yes, they convey meaning. They understand things by their own, by themselves. Okay, and they grow insights. An insight is something that grows inside of you when you discover things, when A and B click and you say, so this is how we learned, so this is all about. So in that moment of it's when you discover things. All right, and in that moment, when you discover things and when you so this is all about, you are conveying meaning. So this is another important principle, concept, basic concept of language awareness. And learners acquire the language through experiential process. This is very important too. And as you can see, all these concepts, principles, basic principles, are related to children, students being active in the process and not passive. So they learned acquiring the language through an experiential process. They are involved in all the process from the beginning to the end. And you can see that very clearly in the class, in the video you watched. Okay? So contextualization is very important. Why? Because when we learn the language, or when we learn a language, for example, our native language, the native language, or the language per se, it's linked to a context, to social situations, to moments where we see things around the use of the language that are linked and give meaning to that language, to that aspect of the language. So language is learned or taught within a given context, a cultural or social context. So contextualization is very important. It's been proved that teaching aspects of grammar or pronunciation or vocabulary in isolation is not effective. I mean, when you isolate parts, aspects of the language, and you want to teach them, or you want learners to learn aspects of the language in isolation, such as grammar or pronunciation or vocabulary, it's not so much effective. I'm not saying that learning does not take place. Obviously it takes place, but it's going to be much more effective when those aspects are contextualized, linked to a context, to a cultural, social situation. Okay? So it's going to be more effective if we try to help learners become aware of, or to notice, or to pay attention to specific aspects of language, like, for example, grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary within a given cultural or social situation. This is going to be much more effective than just try to teach the language isolated, or the aspects of the language like parts or apart from the context. Okay, I like to show this tweet, which shows exactly what I'm trying to say. Okay? It says, I'm sorry and I apologize mean the same thing, except when you are at a funeral. English is a weird language. Well, English is a weird language, yes, but not only English. Because if you see, these two phrases have exactly the same meaning, but in different contexts, in different situations, in different moments, they do not have the same meaning. They have a totally different meaning. Okay? And this is a clear example of what I'm saying. So we cannot learn or we cannot teach aspects of the language isolated from the social situation, the social context, the social moment. So if we want to be much more effective when we teach, remember, the context is very important. So that's why it's very important to contextualize the situation before we want learners to acquire aspects of the language. So the question is, how can we take all these principles, concepts, and ideas into a language activity? That would be like the something that we have to do. How all these principles, concepts, and ideas can be part of a language activity. And the video that you watched, the video about language awareness class, has the answer for this question. Okay? So I'm going to do another presentation about the video. We are going to analyze the video, and we are going to see all the parts of the video where you can see all these principles and ideas about language awareness. Okay? So please watch the following video where I present the language awareness lesson and I analyze all these parts of the lesson. Thank you very much.